that anybody who's not here, I don't have to repeat myself. They can go on YouTube and listen to it. And that also will help you guys if you ever have to be absent. There'll be a recording on YouTube for you to keep up with what you missed in the class. Okay, so let me start by checking attendance. Let's see, Sierra Davis is not here yet. Let's see, forgive me if I mutilate any names. Dongyun Huang? Okay. Did I say that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Here, okay, David Kelly. Not here yet. Okay. I cannot, oh, the tiny print. I think this is Ethan Longbons? That's it, okay. Let's see, Dylan Maltby? Okay, Dylan. Okay, Alex Perez. Okay. Let's see, Andrea Rendell? Andrea, okay. Let me make a note of that, Andrea. Okay, Avery Ritchie? Did I say that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see, Emily Sutton. All right. Need to make this print larger next time. Sveta Warren? Does that sound right? Not here. Okay. Tatiana Wilson? Yeah. Did I say that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And Jack Jung? Yeah. Okay. Let's see. And somebody came in while I was checking. Could that be David Kelly by any chance? All right. Okay. You walked in like 2 seconds after I said your name. Okay. So we're just missing 2 other people on my list right now. Okay. They come. Okay. So is everybody in Canvas? Has everybody used Canvas before? You've done your training, you've signed up, you know how to get into it. Okay. So I'm going to give you a quick tour of my Canvas page. I've tried to keep it simple so that it's easy for you to find what you really need, and there's nothing there that you don't need. Okay, so home page is just a little welcome, and your syllabus and your fall schedule are both right there on that welcome page. Okay, syllabus, I'm going to actually open up. Both of these are just, click to open them. Here it comes. This schedule looks something like this without the red marks. So that's my handwriting. But the schedule is an outline of what I expect us to be covering every day of the whole semester. All lined out for you right now. So you don't have any mysteries. You know when the tests are going to be. You know approximately which pages of the textbook will be covering on any given day in class, so you can do the assignments ahead of time and be prepared so that when I call on you, you're not sitting there saying, I don't know. Okay? Because guess what? I'm going to be calling on you. Every last one of you, multiple times per class. Okay? So, the syllabus obviously tells you information about all kinds of good stuff like the textbooks. Does everybody have their books? Okay, who doesn't have them yet? Okay. The people who don't have them yet is because you couldn't get to the bookstore or the bookstore was sold out?
It was because I wasn't sure what edition you want.
Okay, this edition. It's the second edition. There's only 2, but it is the second edition that we're using. Okay? Okay, so the bookstore should have them. Amazon's probably got them too. So, has anyone been in the bookstore lately? Do they still have them in stock?
They did when I was there.
Okay, because sometimes they do run out. It has happened. I've had people tell me that they couldn't get a book until whenever it came in the mail because the bookstore was sold out. but everybody needs to have them by Thursday, because you've actually got assignments for tonight due Thursday, okay? So if you don't have them yet, can I have a show of hands again of the people who do have them, and can you let somebody come look on with you if you've got the books? Okay, so maybe you can slide over to here. Who else needs a book to look at? Okay, maybe some of you can turn around to people behind you. There are people behind you who have the books. Yeah.
Like at the high school, they didn't know what books really needed. They were like confusing. So they have like two. It looks like the same book. Like,
Okay.
it doesn't look like I can't really tell.
Yeah, that's it.
And then there's the other one that looks like. That's the like a cover on those.
Oh, yeah, it's the same look on the inside. It's just somebody lost the cover at some point.
But they gave me the
They,
same book.
they gave you the same book twice.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Okay, do they have a workbook for you, or are they going to
No,
draw that?
I have to go to.
Okay, okay. So yes, you will need the textbook and the workbook right away. So does everybody have somebody to look on with? If you do, great. If you don't, raise your hand. Okay. Ah, Sierra's here. She's got a book, right? Can you come join her? We've got a few people who don't have their books. Okay, you've got the books. Okay, do you need someone to look on with? Okay, you need someone to look on with? Okay. You can share 3 ways, you don't mind? Okay, 'cause he's sitting right there willing to share too. Okay, so does everybody has a book they can see? Yes? Okay, this is important because this is one of the weirdest textbook layouts I've ever worked with. Okay? It works, but it's weird. So you guys have to be aware of some important information, such as the fact that your lesson 1 material is divided into 2 segments in the textbook, and so is each subsequent lesson. Okay? So let me show you what I'm talking about. There is a marker for, let's see what page number they even call this. They call this page 33. Hi, welcome. You must be, let's see, I saw Sierra, so you've got to be Sveta?
Yes.
Did I say it okay?
Yes.
All right. Okay. And do you have your books?
No, I'm gonna get them by next class.
Okay, can you scoot over and look on with somebody?
Okay.
Great. Okay. So, section 1 of the textbook, section 1 of the textbook is the introductory material. And so obviously, if it's all completely in Japanese, that's not for you. Don't panic. That's for me to read. Okay? Reverse side, same exact thing in English. So you can read this one. You don't have to read that one. Okay, then you get into table of contents. Bilingual, nice, right? So you can find your chapters and your page numbers that way if you need to. Okay? And it also gives a sort of rundown of the basic grammar structures being covered in each chapter. Useful. And here's where it starts to get interesting, because you've got chapters 1 through 12, and then it starts over again with chapter 1 again. Why? Because this book divides everything into the conversation section and the reading and writing section. Okay? So the first part of the book, the first 2/3 or so of the book, is the conversation section, which has dialogues, vocabulary lists, grammar structure explanations, and grammar practice, speaking practice, stuff like that. Okay? And then, starting from page 290, it has the reading and writing section where they introduce various aspects of the Japanese writing system. The real stuff, not the romanization. Okay? So for lesson 1, we're actually going to be covering what is called hiragana, which is the first alphabet that Japanese kids all learn. And then in lesson 2, part of lesson 2, we'll be learning the katakana, which is the second alphabet that Japanese kids all learn. And then from lesson 3 onwards, we'll be learning kanji, which is the third writing system that Japanese kids all learn, which is based off of Chinese characters. So if anybody has any knowledge of Chinese characters, that's useful. Okay? Unfortunately, most of the pronunciations don't match up. So that part's no help at all, even if you have fluent Chinese. But knowing how to write some of the characters or knowing what some of them look like, very useful. Okay, so that's the layout of the book. Okay, so when you get past the table of contents, again, you get a section that's written for the teachers. You can ignore those pages. No panic allowed. That was written for the teachers. You don't have to read it. Okay, you just keep flipping, and you find introduction in English, same content translated. Okay, so there may be the occasional typo or misspelling or funky grammar in the English because the authors of this textbook are all Japanese native speakers. Not a single one of them was a native speaker of English. So every once in a while their English is funky. Don't worry about it. Okay, so you're going to read the introduction for homework. That's part of your assignment tonight. Okay, and it's several pages, and it also gives some information about Japanese writing system. Gives you a nice little overview of what the writing system is like, the 3 different parts of it, and why we need all 3 parts, and a little bit about the history of how it came to be that way. Okay, and it gives you charts showing what they look like, some overview of pronunciation quirks of the language, things like that. So that's a really good introduction. I'm not expecting you to retain every bit of information that you read in here, but it's there for you so you can go back and reread it in a month or so when it'll all make a whole lot more sense. Okay, so please do read it now, and then go back and reread it again, and you'll be like, oh yeah, I didn't understand what they were talking about then, but now I know. Okay, start of the main conversation section looks like this. Okay, it's labeled in big print in Japanese and much smaller print in English, same meaning. Okay, again, they're doing the bilingual thing. Okay, a lot of places all throughout the textbook you will find Japanese first, English second, and it is a translation. Okay, so you may not be able to read Kaiwa Bunpo Hen right now, but you can certainly read conversation and grammar section, which is what Kaiwa Bunpo Hen means. Okay, and then you've got, again, a quick little table of contents of the 12 chapters for the conversation and grammar section. And here we have the very first part that you're going to start working on, which is aisatsu, greetings. So we're going to learn some greetings. And every time in this textbook that you see this little sound symbol near the top of the heading, near the top of the new exercise, that means that that's one of the exercises that is on your CD that's in the back of your textbook. Okay? So every last one of these that's marked with that little symbol is on your CD, and I want you to be listening to that daily if possible. Okay? My suggestion, my recommendation for everyone in this class is that one of the first things you go home and do, along with reading that introductory material I just showed you, is that you actually get on your computer with your discs and make yourself a playlist and put it on whatever device you're most likely to listen on, and include, for now, all of the introductory material that's labeled greetings, all of the stuff that's labeled lesson 1, and all the stuff that's labeled lesson 2 from the textbook CD and the workbook CD, because there's one of each. They're both in the backs of the books, okay? And they're just in these little zipper things, so once you open it, it can easily fall out and get lost, so you might want to go ahead and rip them both to your computer right away and make yourself your playlists and whatever before the CD goes missing, because that happens to people all the time. They stick it back in this little envelope, and then their books get turned upside down and the CD goes bye-bye. So playlists should be greetings, lesson 1 and lesson 2 for now. When we finish the greetings material and we get more heavily into lesson 1, you're going to keep listening to greetings, lesson 1, lesson 2. When we finish lesson 1 and start lesson 2, I want you to change your playlist to be lesson 1, lesson 2, lesson 3. When we're in lesson 3, it's going to be lesson 2, lesson 3, lesson 4. Do you see a pattern developing? I want you to always be listening to at least one chapter's worth of review material so that you're reinforcing the stuff you just recently learned. I want you to be listening to the current material so that you're reinforcing what we're working on. And I want you to be previewing, pre-listening the coming material for the coming chapter so that you're ready for it, and when we start that chapter, it's not brand new to you because your brain has already heard it a bunch of times. Even if you didn't have any clue what any of it was saying, that doesn't matter. Your subconscious brain says, oh, familiar information, cool, instead of, yikes, brand new information, I'm scared. Okay? So it makes a huge difference. You think, oh, that's hokey. No, it really works. And here's the craziest part of it. It works even while you're sleeping. Listening to the CDs while you're asleep helps your pronunciation, helps your listening comprehension, helps you memorize your vocabulary. Okay? It actually helps. So, it sounds weird, right? People ask me how I got to have such a good accent in Japanese, why I sound like almost a native speaker. Listening while I slept. That's what did it for me. Okay? I've had Japanese people say, but you grew up in Japan, right? No. You started Japanese when you were really little, right? No. I started Japanese when I was 16. And I got fluent partly because of listening while I slept. Okay? So it works. It helps. I did not start when I was 5. I started when I was 16. Okay? So you're going to read the parts of this that you can read, which for now might not be this part. It might be this part. That's okay. But guess what? Part of your homework besides this reading section is lesson 1 in the workbook reading and writing section. So just like I showed you in the textbook, you've got those different segments. You've got lessons 1 through 12 Kaiwa section, conversation section, and then you've got lessons 1 through 12 reading and writing section. Same deal in the workbook. It's divided up exactly the same way. So what you want to do is familiarize yourself with both the textbook and the workbook. You'll see readings homework is basically identifying by listening to the CD, hearing them say one of the greetings, and figuring out how to write it out. So how are you going to be able to do that? We haven't done the writing system yet. You're going to start doing the writing system. We're going to start it today in class, and you're going to start working on it for homework too. So you've got all that reading to do in English, but you're also going to be doing some writing in Japanese right off the bat, so that you can start doing what Japanese kindergartners do, which is learn to read and write their own alphabet so that they can write out words. The difference is you're obviously not kindergartners. So on the one hand, you're not fluent in the language already like they are, but on the other hand, you're mature adult learners who know how to study, and they're not. So you're going to be learning it in a different way, but we're going to be using tools that native speakers use when they're helpful for adult learners. Okay? So that listening trick, that's an adaptation from what happens to Japanese babies. Japanese babies grew up listening to Japanese, right? They were hearing it all the time, right? Mom and dad talking to each other, older sister and older brother talking to each other, friends and neighbors talking in front of the baby, right? So lo and behold, by the time they're 5, they speak their language, right? Worked for you with English, right? So, so same deal, right? So if you can reproduce that in some way by doing a lot of listening to the language from the very beginning, it helps you learn the language. Have you ever met a 5-year-old born and raised in this country with English-speaking parents and English-speaking family members and English-speaking friends who couldn't speak English? No. By the time they're 5, they speak it pretty well, right? Now, if they have bilingual parents or bilingual family or something, maybe their English is a little bit weaker because half of their vocabulary is in that other language. But they know the same number of words overall, probably. Just half of them are one language and half of them are the other language, right? So we're going to be working on this today. So any questions about the textbook or the workbook or why it's so important that you get them by Thursday? Okay, so talking about the rest of the syllabus, obviously it outlines grades. My grading system is pretty basic, pretty simple. We have homework grades, we have tests, and we have the final exams. Okay? Our tests consist of a couple of segments. There's going to be a speaking segment where you're actually going to sign up for a time slot that fits your schedule. I'll have timesheets for everybody to sign up on when the time comes. And you're going to come in with one other student, you and one other student, and you're going to have topics to talk about in Japanese. And for lesson 1, it's going to be pretty basic stuff. Hello, my name is, how old are you? I'm 27, you know, stuff like that. When you get more advanced, it gets more challenging, obviously. Okay, but it's going to be, you know, like you'll have a list of the kinds of questions that you should be able to ask and answer in Japanese by the end of lesson 1. And you'll have a list of those in English, and you'll be expected to take turns. You know, you ask your partner a few questions, they answer those questions, the partner asks you a few questions, you answer those questions, and I grade you guys on how well you're able to ask and answer in Japanese. Okay, so that's part of the test. That's called the OPI, Oral Proficiency Interview. That's the style test we do. Okay, the written test is going to include translating sentences both directions. It's going to include, obviously, writing in hiragana for lesson 1 test. It's going to include some listening comprehension sections, including some places where I just say the sound of the letter, and then you reproduce it on the page, and others where I say a whole word and you write down what it means in English, and some where I say a question like, how old are you in Japanese, and you write a Japanese answer, I'm 15, or whatever number you want to pick out of a hat. Excuse me a second, somebody's trying to get my attention. Yes, can I help you? Oh, thanks. Okay. Yeah. I guess that was your dad. Okay. Nice door-to-door service. Yeah. Hey, gotta get your dad down the ball here. That's good service. Okay, so any questions about what tests are going to be like. Obviously, I'll give you a little bit more details when it's closer. Okay? Homework assignments, I have them divided up in your schedule that's on that front page of Canvas. I have it divided up, you know, do these page numbers this night, do those page numbers that night, but you don't have to hand them in then. The reason I'm assigning them that way is so that you'll be prepared for what we're doing in class that next day. But the whole packet, all the workbook exercises, all the textbook exercises, anything else that I might have assigned for you to write down, it's all handed in on the test day. You come in, you plop your books here on the desk for me, you sit down, we take the test. While you guys are working on the written parts of the test, I'm recording everyone's homework grade. Okay? And a homework grade is basically just the percentage of the work that you did. Okay? So let's say you did 9 pages, but there were 10 assigned in the workbook. You get a 9 out of 10 for that part. Let's say there were 25 exercises in the textbook that were assigned, and you did 24 of the 25 exercises. You get a 24 out of 25 for the textbook part of the homework. And those numbers just get added together. So the grand total for this chapter might be, say, 35 points, and maybe because you skipped a couple, maybe you've got a 33 out of 35 instead of 35 out of 35. If you do every single exercise, even if you made some mistakes and you didn't get them all perfectly right, you'll still get full credit. If you skipped a page, you lost that point. Okay? Important thing to note when you're doing the workbook exercises, it's hard to tell on these because this was a copy that was used by a student, but the first 3 of each symbol that you're supposed to be practicing writing, the first 3 are done in gray. Those are not there just to look pretty. Those are there for you to trace so that you're starting to get the muscle memory into your hand of how to form the character. Okay? Muscle memory is a wonderful tool for helping you learn to memorize these symbols. Okay? If you follow the stroke order directions and you write it consistently the same way every time, that builds muscle memory. And just like riding a bike, once you've got it down really well, you never forget it. If you're haphazard about it and you sometimes write it this direction, sometimes you write it that direction, sometimes you write it in the opposite order of the way it's supposed to be done, you're not developing the muscle memory. So you're actually shortchanging yourself in terms of how much easier you could make it to memorize these things. So we're going to talk about stroke order today as we go through these characters. And then hopefully as you go along, you'll start to be able to use the little directions they give you after every symbol where they're actually showing you. This line comes first, this line comes next, that line comes last. Okay? They're showing it to you, but it helps to see me doing it and to do it with me to start with because direction matters also. So for example, if we're writing this first symbol, left to right for the first line, top to bottom for the second line, and then it starts from here and goes around like that in a loop for the third line. Doing it backwards might feel easier to you if you're a lefty, but it's going to end up hurting you in the end if you don't pay attention to stroke order because guess what? When somebody is really fluent in Japanese and really good at the writing, guess what they sometimes do? Cursive. You know what cursive is, basically? Not lifting your pen while you're writing. So instead of this neat thing that's clear and easy to read, you might get that. Now, if you know your stroke order, you can see, well, he obviously started from here, and he did this line first, and then he went to here, and then he went to here, and you can figure out that that is that, if you know your stroke order. And what's the best way to know your stroke order? Is by doing it, learning by doing. If you're using the correct stroke order all the time, then you don't have to think about what was the correct stroke order for that. You just write it and your hand remembers, right? And it makes it a whole lot easier to identify that squiggle as being the same as that letter, right? Okay, so stroke order matters, and it actually will help you if you pay attention to it from the start. Okay, so we're going to talk about that some more when we get into this. So I want to just go through whatever else is in the syllabus that we need to talk about. Attendance policy is basically be responsible for your own learning. If you have to be absent, we can't stop the class to wait for you to come back. We're going to keep moving. So that's why I've got the YouTube recordings of every class so that you can actually go on and find that day's class and listen to what you missed. And if you're going to be doing a planned absence, you know ahead of time, oh, your family's going out of town on this date, you have to go with them, you have no choice. You can see me ahead of time, and we can plan ahead that you're going to turn in your homework ahead of time before you leave, you're going to take your test ahead of time before you leave, if it's a test day, or if you're just going to be missing one of our regular classes that doesn't have a test or homework happening, then you can just plan on, okay, well, I see what I'm going to be missing in the schedule. I'm going to study that stuff and make sure that if I have any questions, I can ask about them before it gets too close to the test. And you can listen to the YouTube recording of what we did in class that day. Okay, so that way you don't have to worry about panicking because you're going to miss a day. Because every day counts in a class like this. Okay, so let's see. So that's about the schedule. If you have to turn something in late, like you get here and you realize, oops, you left your workbook in mom's car and she can't get back here in time to give it to you. You know, things like that happen. If you can get it to me that same day, you can still get 80% of whatever your points would have been for that assignment. If you can not get it to me to the next class meeting, it goes down to 60% of whatever your points would have been. And I don't accept it later than the next class day, because that's not fair to the people who did the work and turned it in on time. Plus the fact that it's holding us back from moving on to the next chapter if you haven't completed all your homework by the test day. You really need to do all your work ahead of time, because guess what? The whole point of the homework is to prepare you for that test and make sure you really know this material, right? There's no other point to homework than to prepare you and make sure you really know the stuff, right? So that's what it is. It's practice. It's practice to help you learn the material. So if you can't turn it in on time, there's really hardly any point. Okay. So the homework, obviously, like I talked about, workbook exercises, textbook exercises. Some of those are going to be listening material things. Daily drills, very important. We're going to be practicing speaking Japanese in class. This is the only class period where I'm going to be up here talking this much in English, and you guys aren't going to be saying a whole lot. That's going to change as soon as we get through the syllabus and we start doing some work with the characters. Okay, this is a 4-credit-hour course, but our class hours are only 3 out of the 4 credits. That means you have to make up the other 16 hours by doing language lab hours. Has anybody done a language class here before and know about language lab? Okay, only one person. We'll have a little presentation from the language lab probably on Thursday so that they explain what you need to do. But it would be a good idea for you to get in there today or tomorrow and ask for yourself and get started doing some lab hours, because it's basically, it averages out to 1 hour per week. But I had some students in the past who didn't get their hours in soon enough, and they're scrambling at the very end of the semester, and they're told, sorry, there's no room in here, you can't come in. How am I supposed to get my lab hours? You should have thought of that earlier in the semester. So don't do that to yourself, okay? Don't procrastinate. Do extra up front so that when it gets to exam time and it's standing room only in there and they're not letting anyone else in, you're not one of the ones left out in the cold. Okay. There are some helpful hints in here. Basically what it boils down to, again, is taking responsibility for your own learning. You know your own learning style better than anybody else, hopefully. Pay attention to what works for you and make sure you're doing enough of it. Okay? This is not a lightweight class. This is not a study for 10 minutes before the test and ace the test kind of class. I don't know if there is such a thing at college, but if there is, this isn't it. Okay? This is more like a study 10 minutes, and then 10 more minutes, and then 10 more minutes, and then 10 more minutes, and probably spend 1 to 2 hours per day, 7 days a week, to keep up with the workload in this class. That's typical. I don't want to say average because I've never done a mathematical average of how many hours different people spend on it. But typically, most students find an hour or two a day is what they need to keep up with this material. And I've had some students tell me that they felt like this was their 40-hour-a-week job studying for this course because it was difficult for them. Some people find it's easy for them. Some people find it's really difficult for them. So, and you won't know which you are until you start doing it. So you might, get through the first week and a half of this and think, wow, this is so much harder than I thought. This makes physics look easy. And then other people are being like, what are you complaining about? It's not that bad. Everybody's different. Okay. If you have any kind of vision or hearing difficulties, please sit where you can accommodate that for yourself. Okay? And if you have any kind of other disability that's documented that you qualify for accommodations, you need to go to talk to the OSD and bring me the OSD form about that. I can't just give you extra time or make a different test for you or anything. If you need something like a large print test or extra time or a quiet room to take your test in, you need to talk to the OSD about that stuff. Okay, but if you've got something like you're super nearsighted and you can't see the board from the back row, then for God's sake, sit in the front row. Okay? Don't make it harder on yourself than it has to be. Okay, we are going to get started on some content. Does anyone have any questions about anything that I went over? Okay. We have time to go over some content. Oh, and I did not put these in order, so
Why
yes.
did you get interested in Japanese?
Why did I get interested? I started out, gosh, it's a long story, but what it boils down to is I read some books that were set in Japan when I was in like 8th grade and was fascinated by them. My best friends in 8th and 9th and 10th grade were all from East Asia, immigrant families in the area where I was living. My best friend in the 8th grade was from Taiwan. I started learning Chinese first, and she was teaching me bits and pieces. Started taking Chinese for credit in 10th grade because I was lucky, and there was actually a program for that. And then this 10th grade Chinese teacher, she had a guest speaker come in to tell us about exchange programs. And there weren't any for American students to go to China as a high school kid at that time. But there was a program in Japan, and since I'd already read some stuff set in Japan and I was interested in Japan too, I jumped at the chance to go spend a summer in Japan. Loved it, couldn't stand to decide between the two. So I ended up studying both languages all the way through high school, college, grad school, got my master's in East Asian languages and cultural studies, and I teach both.
Amazing at the same time.
Yes, it was crazy. I don't necessarily recommend it, but I couldn't pick. I liked them both too much, and when somebody would try to tell me you have to choose one or the other, I said, I can't choose. So that's what I ended up doing. So, and I forgot to sort these before class, so we're just going to see what we can do about sorting them quick right now, and while I'm doing this, if you guys have any other questions, I can try to answer and sort at the same time.
The homework for the textbook, it was read my introduction for.
Yeah, for tonight, according to my schedule, it says textbook pages 18 to 31, which is the intro stuff, and workbook pages 117 to 121, and make yourself some hiragana flashcards. And there are options for how you can do that. You can make them by hand on 3x5 cards or whatever, or you can get fancy and do printed ones off the computer, or photocopy the symbols in the back of the textbook and cut them out and do them that way. There are lots of options there. Okay.
Is there a restroom here?
Yes, the restrooms, okay, everybody will probably need to know this. You know, one of the most important things to know how to say in any language is where's the restroom, right? If you go out these doors to the causeway and go to the second set of glass doors for the same building and go back in again, the restrooms are right near that entrance.
Oh, how do you say that in Japanese?
Duh.
No, just where's the bathroom?
Oh, just
Not-
where's the
not
bathroom?
directions.
Not the
yet.
directions, okay.
Say the whole thing.
Toire wa doko desu ka?
Not there yet, not there yet.
Here you go. Okay. Toire wa doko desu ka? So I'll write it out. Toire wa doko desu ka? So these are the symbols we're going to be using, and this is what it looks like spelled out in phonetics. Toire wa doko desu ka? So there's your first Japanese phrase.
So you always write the ha symbol wa when you're using it in that sentence?
When you're using it in that kind of grammar structure, yes. Okay, so
That
yes.
symbol is ha.
That symbol is ha, but it's getting pronounced as wa when it's doing certain special functions. So, so I know that sounds awful and confusing right now, but believe me, it's not as bad as you think, and it will make sense once we get there. We're not there yet, okay? But let's see. Zip. Okay. You, Sue. Okay. Bet. Oh. Da. Okay, these are sticking. Okay, you, here, more. Got it? More. There. Cool. Okay, now I'm mixing things here. Ma should be over here, not with the ha's and ba's. Okay, new. No, that's new. Ta. Te. Well. Hey, you want to do me a favor? Can you help me sort through the ones that have two symbols like this on this pile, and then give me the other ones, and I'll be much faster that way. So, go.
I don't know the difference, so.
Yeah, just if it's one big one on one pile, and if it's two little ones on the other pile. Thanks. Yeah. She. Thanks, no big ones, and if you could just buy those big ones. Okay. So, thanks, that helps it go faster. New. Heat. Okay, I think we've got things roughly sorted now. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off by looking at them in order, and then we're going to kind of mix and match. Okay. Okay. So here are the first set, okay? And if you look in the front of your textbook, at the very front, the orange pages, you can see a hiragana chart there. Everybody see what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Is that where we're doing the flashcards?
You can do flashcards from here if you want. And a really easy way to make flashcards, if you're not comfortable writing them yet, would be to just photocopy these 2 pages and cut them up, right? That would be an easy way to make flashcards, wouldn't it? And it's even got the symbols already written, so you could just fold the pieces of paper in half with the symbol on one side and the romaji on the other side, if you really wanted to be lazy about it. Or you could just cut that part off and then write on the back of your card. So anyway, so this symbol is called A. So let's all practice our pronunciation together, because the name it's called and the way it's pronounced are identical in Japanese. Okay, isn't that great?
Yes.
No, like it's pronounced like this, but it's called that.
Like
No.
A,
Yeah, exactly. And what they're symbolized by in English is just an attempt to not have any confusion with the spelling. So you'll notice that A is always spelled with an A. E is always spelled with an I, like the E sound in ski, like I went skiing, that's ski, okay? U is always spelled with a U, a letter U, like the U in human. U, okay? Okay. This is E, and it's always spelled with the letter E, like in bed or red or Ted. Okay. And this is O, and it's always spelled with an English letter O, just like go. Okay, like go away. Okay, so let's go over these together with Japanese pronunciation. Ah, 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 ah. E, 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 E. Ooh, 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 ooh. Eh, O, O. One of the interesting things about Japanese is if you write the same letter twice, then the way it gets pronounced is just same thing, double time. So for example, this is actually a word. This et means picture. This is and it means yes. So so let's pronounce them together. Okay? When you have spelling of two vowels together, you pronounce each one. And they run together some, but you still pronounce them both. So wet, that's a word that means up or above. Okay? If you have, and this is special, okay? If you have certain combinations, when they run together, they morph a little bit. So, for example, this o, so it's going to be pronounced o, right? O, when you run it together, o, it sounds pretty much the same, right? You hear that? So because of that, when you hear sounds that have a long o sound in them in Japanese, it's very often going to end with this one rather than this one. This one is very rare in terms of how often it gets spelled this way. It's very common for it to be spelled this way, for that second vowel. But both do exist. So there are a few words like oki is spelled with the o sound. But other words that have the long o sound in them, like Tokyo, it's ooze. Benkyo, it's an oo. I'm trying to think of other examples. Gakko, it's an oo on the end. Okay? The same issue occurs with versus I. You pronounce this one right? When you pronounce I and you run it together, it starts to sound awfully like right? So for example, sensei is actually spelled with a se I, but it sounds like you were spelling it okay? So another example, eigo means English language. It's actually spelled eigo, but it doesn't sound like eigo when people pronounce it fully. They pronounce it as eigo. Okay? Can you hear how those similarities sort of came about naturally over time in Japanese? So both of these spellings do exist. This one is more common. Both of these spellings do exist. This one is more common. Okay? So, pronounced and o, pronounced o, are the more common spellings, but the o spelling and the spelling do exist in a few words as well. So, when the unusual spellings come up in a new vocabulary word, I will point it out. Your default setting should be OU and AE, okay? And there's a problem with this textbook in that they don't distinguish between those two spellings in their romanization of the vocabulary. That's one thing about this book that I really don't like. Most of the rest of the book I think is really good. That one thing is really annoying. So what I want you to do is try to get away as quickly as possible from depending on this romanization and start being able to read the real thing as soon as possible so that you're not confused by, for example, the term eigo, meaning English language, which in romanization, according to me, it should be spelled E-I-G-O, but the textbook spells it this way, which I just find incredibly annoying because it teaches you to misspell it, right? And I understand why they did it. They did it because the pronunciation of this should be like this, right? Eigo. They don't want you to mispronounce it Eagle, because that's not how it's really pronounced. But I want you to spell it correctly and pronounce it correctly. So I want you to learn it in hiragana. And if you can avoid looking at that obnoxious romanization, that would be better. What is I not? I'm not sure why that's beeping at me, but okay. No, that's still working. Okay. So anyway, I think it's telling me that I'm timing out of the computer. But anyway, so let's review a, I, U, E, O again, and then we're going to do the next set. Okay, so this is a, I, U, E, O. Okay. If I scramble them just a little bit, can we still remember them in order? Which one's which? What's this one? U, E, A, I, O. Okay? And you'll notice the order that they're in that front page of the textbook. It's like a chart, right? And you'll notice that all the vowels that are the same are grouped in columns, right? And all the consonants that are the same are grouped across in rows, right? They do that on purpose, and they use that to help keep track of what's what with the alphabet, okay? So every kid in Japan learns their alphabet chart in that chart format, in that order, and that is alphabetical order for your glossary in your textbook and for every other Japanese paper dictionary that uses hiragana as its lookup system, okay? And it's also the order that Japanese kids say their alphabet in. A, I, U, E, O, ka, ki, ku, ke, ko, sa, shi, su, se, so, and so on. Okay? And it's really good to know it in order. Okay? So we're actually going to do the next set. And let's see, I'm going to pull out the 10-10s for now. Okay, so we're going to talk about the ka set. So, and these groupings actually have names in Japanese. So the ones that start with a, I, U, E, O, that is known as the agyo. Agyo. Gyo basically means group in this case. So agyo means the a group, which incorporates the 5 standalone vowels, a, I, U, E, O. Those, by the way, are the only vowels in Japanese. Just those 5. That's it. Okay, here we have ka. Everybody say it with me. Ka, ka, ka. Ki, ki, ki. Ku, ku. Ke, ko. Okay. A few interesting facts. Ka, ki. Notice the key here. Look at the key in your textbook. How does it look different?
It's not curled. It's not connected.
It's not connected, okay? So this is a more stylized, more cursive version of ki. The separated one is more of a print style of ki, okay? They are equivalent. It's like cursive L and print L, okay? Or cursive K and print K. They're the same letter, there's just 2 different versions, okay? I don't really care which one you choose to write, but I can tell you that for beginners, the print version that's in your textbook is probably easier to form correctly and less confusing because of some characters that are sort of mirror image looking of each other, and you don't really want to get your ki and sa confused with chi. It's not as big of a problem with ki as it is with, if you look at sa and chi, the connected version of sa looks like a mirror image of chi, and you'll see that in a minute when we get to it. So I personally recommend the separated version of ki for beginners to write, but if you are really attached to this connected version, or if you've learned hiragana before and you're already used to it, that's okay. Okay, but I wanted everybody to be aware of the fact that there are different font styles for Japanese, just like there are for English, and my print flashcards are almost always going to be in this other style. So, oh well. So you're going to get used to reading both very soon. So there, let's go through them once more. Ka, ki, ku, ke. And you'll notice, for example, the ke, this is what we call a hook. The hook is much smaller in some versions of ke, okay? And some people write it so that you can barely tell there is a hook, and some people exaggerate the hook like this does. So that's ke and ko. And once again, this is a very stylized cursive kind of ko, and it's got a big hook. Sometimes the hook is much smaller. Sometimes this top line curves more upward instead of inward like that. Okay, so that's ko. Okay, now what I want to see if we can do is, can we scramble them and still identify them? Ku is in there. Yeah. You just know it so well you forgot that it was there. Okay. We had a ku in there. Yep, there was. Okay, so let's scramble these just a little bit. Okay, so what do we got here? Ki. Good. Ku. Oh, yes, that's an O. U. E. A. E. Ke. Ko. Ka. Good. Ki again. All right. Back to where we started. Any questions so far? Okay. So, and you've got your charts for reference, right? And in your textbook, that's your textbook. In your workbook, that first page of the homework is a, I, U, E, O, ka, ki, ku, ke, ko, right? And for each one, it's showing you stroke order, but it doesn't show little arrows for direction, unfortunately. If you need that, you might want to go ahead and write that in with a different colored pen right now. That's what I want us to do next. Before we go on to the next set, let's talk briefly about stroke order and direction. And I'm actually going to turn off what's on the screen here because I want to use this space. And I'm going to show it to you in traditional format. Because this is a bilingual textbook, it's got both English and Japanese print in it, it's typed and printed in an English style, meaning left to right and horizontal print. Traditional Japanese printing was right to left and vertical. Okay? So when I write the hiragana chart, I normally do it the traditional way because that's how I learned it. I'm not good at writing it the vertical way. It just doesn't come naturally to me. I learned it initially from one of the children's charts that my host sister found for me. It was like, you know, the kind that kindergarten teachers in Japan put on the wall. And it does it vertically. So I'm going to show it to you that way. So we start with A, I, U, E, O, and ka, ki, ku, ke, ko. And you'll notice that my handwriting and the textbook's writing and the flashcards writing are all slightly different from each other. This is what we call normal variation, okay? If we compared the handwriting in English of every person in here, we'd probably get 15 different versions of the letters, am I right? So, same thing with this, okay? So when you're writing, try to keep it as close to the model as possible for now. Your own personality will infuse itself into your Japanese handwriting over time, but if you are sloppy with it at the beginning, your handwriting will get more and more illegible over time because you'll drift too far from the norm. Okay, so for starters, try to keep it within the norms. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the numbers at the top of each line, the start of each line. So where the number 1 is, you start from there. Where the number 2 is, you start from there. Number 3, you start from there. See how I'm doing this? And you guys can take notes on this or take a picture with your phone when we're done, whichever works for you. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Okay. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you see me like air writing it first because my memory is all muscle memory on this stuff. So I have to write it to remember what labels to put on it. That's what I was talking about before, that muscle memory really makes a difference for how you write things. So that's the stroke order for a, I, u, e, o, ka, ki, ku, ke, ko. Okay? And we're not going to talk about them tonight, this morning, just because it's not necessary yet. The textbook does it in a different order. But just FYI, you'll find out that when you just add these 2 little lines to each one of the K sounds, it turns it into G sounds. So those flashcards are waiting in the wings, and we'll get to them soon. So we're going to do the next row. Okay, so here we have, can anyone guess? Sa, right? And again, this is what I was talking about before. This is a connected one, just like the key was connected, but you can do it like that and have a disconnected sa, more of a print style sa, like your textbook shows you. Okay, so this is sa. Let's all say it together. Sa, 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 sa. This is a little bit of an exception. It's not si, it's she. 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 It's a little bit softer than SHE in English. But it's not all the way to SEE either. It's somewhere in between. Sa, shi, su, se. So that's how Japanese people would say that column. So this is she. Okay. Su. Su. Okay. Here we have se. Se. And so. So. Oh, and we forgot to do our repetitions of these. So let's go back to she. 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 Su. 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 Se. 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 So. 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 Okay. Important note on so. Which version does your textbook show you? Is it the same one? Yes. Okay. There is a variation on so as well. Let me go ahead and write them up here. Sa, shi, su, se, so, or so. Okay, so there are 2 versions of so. what I sometimes refer to as the Z-top or the Y-top versions of So. Okay? When I was a beginner learning Japanese, every time I tried to write the Z-top of So, it came out looking like a funky letter 3. And I was not happy with that. When I wrote the Y-top version of So, it came out looking like I wanted it to look. So I got in the habit of using this one. I do not require that you use one or the other, whichever one is more comfortable for you to write. Experiment with both and see which one you find you can write nicely. Okay? Okay, so those are Sashi Suse. So let's go through them one more time. So this is
Sa, Shi, Su, Se, So.
okay, now I'm going to scramble them a little and combine them with the other 10 that we've already got. So let's see how we do here. Okay, so what's this one?
Ha, I, Ke, Ko, Se, So.
Right.
Sa,
Good.
Ki,
Okay.
Ku,
Yeah.
O, Ha, Shi, Su, U, E, A.
Okay, and that's where we started. Okay, good job. So are we starting to feel comfortable with them? Maybe a little bit? Maybe a little bit, yeah. So the way I'm doing it, where we're going just 5 at a time to start with, getting comfortable with those 5, and then adding 5 more, getting comfortable with those 5, and then mixing them and working on those 10 until you feel like you've got them. That's a really good way to start with this new stuff. Another thing to try doing when you're doing it on your own is, let's say, okay, I'm going to pick on Sierra. So tell me what this one is. Okay. 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 Now pretend you don't know the next one. So pretend you don't know it. Okay, so she didn't remember Ko, so she puts it in a separate pile. And then let's say she knows this one. Yes. Okay, but maybe she forgot this one. So, okay. So over time she goes through them. Some she knows, some she doesn't know. Right? So she ends up with 2 stacks. Right? And for those of you who are really new to this, your don't know it yet stack might be huge, and your got it on the first try stack might be tiny. That's okay. What you do is you pick up just the stack for don't know it yet, shuffle them, go through them again. The second time through, a few more end up in the know it stack. Some of them are still in the don't know it yet stack. Your stack got smaller. Shuffle it, do it again. Do it as many times as it takes until eventually they all end up in the got it stack. Okay? And then if, let's say you were doing it from the direction of looking at the characters and trying to recognize them to start with. That's the easier way to go. Then, if these were real flashcards and not mine, they would have English on the back, the romanization for what each one is, so that you can check yourself, right? So the second time through, you would go through it from this direction and say, okay, that's the letter O in English. Okay, it's pronounced O, and it's written like that. And then you check yourself. Did I do it right? Okay, and again, you put them into the 2 stacks. The ones you got right, the ones you screwed up. The ones you got right, the ones you screwed up. Shuffle, ones you got right, ones you screwed up, and keep going until they all end up in the good pile from the English to Japanese direction. Okay, if you can get through your whole stack of whatever your current material is once a day from both directions like that, you're well on your way to really getting your symbols or your vocabulary or whatever it is. Okay? So I think we're out of time for today, so we're going to stop there. What's that? Okay, so
It comes with a bookmark.
yeah. So we're gonna keep going. So please do at least this much for homework, but try to keep going as far as you can with the hiragana and the other reading that we assigned, and we will do more on Thursday. And you have a question?
The YouTube videos, is the link on Canvas?
Yes, the link is on Canvas, and hold on just a second, and I will show you where, because we didn't get to that yet. So if you go to modules, okay, when you go to, I think it's in general course resources, Sensei's YouTube class recordings, okay? And the one that I just did today is actually still recording. I'm stopping.